Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Read Reads. This is my disclaimer. This beta read in Concrete is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're doing a beta read and Concrete of some original fiction. We are looking at Chapter 3 of the, oh my goodness, I have the title. I have the notes already. The Lake of Haunted Memories by Ladybug88. So we're on Chapter 3. I will put a link in the description to videos of my readings of chapter 1 and 2. And let's see, I don't think, usually I share a link to the document if it's a published piece, but this is not. So, right, so a link in the description of my reads of 1 and 2, and we're going to kind of do a very light recap here. I really encourage you to go back and listen to the first 2 reads before this one, and that way I can keep my recap a little slow, or short. Goodness, if we can get the brain and the mouth to work together today, we will be doing really well. All right, so chapter 1 was in Ruth's point of view. Chapter 2 was in Barb's point of view. We've got college students that are kind of doing a project. They're taking some samples from 2 different lakes and they want to compare them. We have not gotten to the comparing them part because in chapter 1 we were at the first lake, and in chapter 2 they were kind of wrapping up at the first lake and getting ready to go to the second lake, which was Lake Chevanet. But in chapter 1 they ran into an older couple, and this man was in a wheelchair. He had like missing fingers and no legs, and he was completely triggered when they mentioned Lake Chevanet. Okay, so Barb thought that Ruth, and I think it's Carl, who is actually a girl, by the way. Carl is Carlotta and does not like her name because Barb called her by her full name in the second chapter, and Carl did not like that. So Ruth and Carl are like, I think, packing things up, and Barb is talking to, what was the other girl's name? What was the other girl's name? Anna, I believe. And Barb was talking to Anna and convinced her to lie to Ruth and Carl. So, let's see. In anticipation of Ruth and Carl chickening out, Barb convinces Anna to deceive them by tricking them into going to an unnamed alternate lake that they found, but it's actually still just Lake Chevanet. Okay, so she's like, they come, and sure enough, she kind of anticipated this, and she was right. Sure enough, they come back and they're like, oh, we were thinking maybe we should go to a different lake instead. And apparently there's a lot of lakes where they are, and so Barb and Anna basically deceive the other 2 into still tricking them into still going to Lake Chevanet, thinking that they're going to a different lake. And so that's where we left off. And we got to know Barb a little bit, and that we learned that she's not exactly very nice. And it was mentioned that she wasn't nice in chapter 1, but I didn't take it very seriously. And I really thought that they were friends, but now I'm gathering that they don't know each other. They don't actually know each other that well. By the end of chapter 2, it kind of had the feel that they weren't friends, but more like they were assigned in a group to work on this project. So they have aligning interests to motivate them to work together, but they are not friends. And Barb is definitely not nice. And both she and Anna are apparently deceitful because Anna went along with it. So, and Anna also seemed very selfish, as she was all like, what's in it for me, when Barb asked her to do this. So that kind of shows you a little bit of who she is as well. I'm personally holding out hope for everybody because that's what I do. So we're going to get in here and find out if I am foolish to do so. But here we go. Roland, The Lake of Haunted Memories, Chapter 3. And this says Ruth and Barb. Now, we haven't even got started yet, and I'm already a little bit worried about that. I personally write in multiple points of view, and not typically in works that I intend to publish, but I have an entire saga that is in round robin format where I am writing with two other authors, and we write literally with I think it's 25 characters, and between the three of us, we share 25 characters. Each one of us has some OCs, and then but it's a fan fiction saga, and so I'm very versed in switching heads. But if I were writing for publishing, I would not do that. They're going to come back on me. I do have an original piece that I wrote. It's in revision right now, partly because I sent it all the way. It was making it through beta readers, and I sent it all the way to a published author for her to beta for me. And she came back and basically was like, you need to rework a whole lot of this. She's like, you definitely have a concept and a story going. You've got a great voice and everything. And it read very clean, but you switched points of view. I had largely written in one character's point of view for the majority of the book. And then I switched to the main character's aunt. I switched to her like 3 times in the book, not consistently, just 3 strategic times. And because I had planned it, I thought it would be okay. And I had done it with intention to show you her perspective. I wanted to show from a woman's point of view, how one woman saw the other and what was she observing. And for me, it worked, but for her, she was like, this is not going to fly with a publisher. And she's like, it's just not. Now, since then, I have seen well-known writers flip back and forth in points of view. However, when this beta reader said this to me, she said, yes, people do switch points of view, but typically it's back and forth between 2 characters every other chapter. And traditionally that is what you will see. I have seen exceptions to this. I'm holding out here. So I'm just repeating what has been harped on to me repeatedly from different parties. Apparently it's a big deal. I've always thought if it's done well and it works, roll with it. But maybe it's a matter of style. Maybe it's a matter of opinion. Maybe it depends on the story. I don't know. See, in my opinion, I thought that I did okay with what I had done, but I held this reader in high regard. She had very, very difficult for me to hear advice, but I believed her, and she had some good points, and not just about the point of view thing. There were other things about the story that I didn't disagree with. But I did have to put the book down for 3 years before I could pick it back up and work on it again because I was so tired of looking at it. But anyhow, we are going to get in here, and we are going to keep this in mind. I'm going to try to just read it and let my mind rest on it, but I hope I don't overlook something. So probably somewhere in my subconscious it's going to be watching for this. I'm noticing that my brain is with it thinking about so many different things at once when I read that I'm getting distracted, and sometimes I'm saying things wrong. So we will see what happens. All right, Chapter 3. We're with Ruth and Barb. Her cheeks warm, Ruth handed Barb the life vest. Don't worry, you'll get used to all the new terms, Carl said. Ruth nodded, and a bumper sticker caught her attention. White letters on an emerald green background. Going to the woods is going home. Had she come across it before? What's that? A quote by John Muir, the first American environmentalist, Carl replied as she climbed into the pickup through the rear passenger side door. He attended UW too. I get the importance of nature, but comparing it to home, Ruth said. The kind of reflection you need to discover for yourself. You can only find it by spending time alone and fully attuned with yourself. I find nature helps. So there's no dialogue tag there. Sometimes I let that go, but I know that I feel like Barb and Anna are also in this car, and that's because I know this. So when there's more than one character in the space, I feel like we need a dialogue tag. That is my opinion and suggestion. I don't have a suggestion as to a specific motion or dialogue tag at this point. I'm assuming it's still Carl because they're talking, but I'm in the know that Anna and Barb are in the vehicle, I'm guessing. I think that's my thoughts. We're going to keep going. I'm going to muse those things out loud, and we're going to keep going, knowing that my author is going to get what they need out of those musings. Before Ruth hopped onto the front passenger seat, she threw one last glance over to where Olivia and Howard Magnuson's car had been parked, but it was gone. Anna started the engine. "Are you strapped in?" Ruth, okay, so that kind of confirms to me that they're in the car. Okay, so I am right. I think I'm right that they're all in the car. Okay. Ruth pulled the door closed and fastened the seatbelt, but she couldn't erase from her mind the overwhelming sadness in the man's eyes as he had coughed and coughed and coughed. What had caused that reaction? Anna backed the pickup truck away from the tree line. "Let's hit the road, girls." "Hit the road, Jack," Barb sang from the back, "and don't you come back no more." Anna and Carl added their voices to the chorus. "No more, no more, no more." The pickup reversed direction, advancing forward until it turned onto the blacktop, hanging from the rear view. Okay, I actually got interrupted and I had to stop because it was my child's school calling. They are okay. We are going to continue it, but I had to stop and parent, and so I got completely interrupted. We are going to back up. We sang the song. All right. We're going to start right here. The pickup reversed direction, advancing forward until it turned onto the blacktop. Hanging from the rearview mirror, a green turtle air freshener swung from side to side as if dancing along. The singing continued, but Ruth couldn't join in. "Don't you come back no more." Ruth recognized the old Ray Charles song, but the words instilled an ominous feeling in the pit of her stomach, as if she feared the lyrics coming true. But why did she feel this when they were no longer heading to the haunted lake? Oh, that's foreshadowing. Because, Ruth, you do not know that Barb has convinced you to go to this very haunted lake against your will, without your knowing. So there's that. All right. So it looks like, let's see. I don't know I wonder if we're going to have time passing or if we're going to switch heads. Let's see what happens. Frowning again, Ruth turned toward the rear seat. "So did they ever build the lodge?" Barb recalled the stories Pet and his parents had told her. "I don't think anyone believed in murderous trees, but for some reason the landowner abandoned the lodge idea." "He probably couldn't find anyone willing to work there again," Carl said. "Until he died almost 20 years later and his daughters sold the land to a company that proved Carl here wrong by hiring twice as many loggers. But again, only one made it out alive." What? Okay, sorry. "Apparently, he was the wheelchair guy and hadn't been institutionalized like his father. Barb hadn't heard a lot about him, but no other logging crew had gone to Lake Chevanette, so people must have believed him. People like Pet's hillbilly parents. She couldn't take them seriously." Hang on. People like Pet's hillbilly... Hang on. At first, I read this as like people liked Pet's hillbilly parents. Now I'm kind of wondering if it's actually part of this. Like, people like Hillbilly's parents, she couldn't take them seriously. So, see, it can be read two different ways, and I'm not really sure which one it's supposed to be. So, let's see. Barb hadn't heard a lot about him, but no other logging crew had gone to Lake Chevanette, so people must have believed him. People like Pet's hillbilly parents. She couldn't take them seriously. Okay, so that's one way. I think that's the way I kind of was reading it initially, but it doesn't seem to make sense. So I'm thinking it's actually supposed to be like comma, lowercase s is what I'm thinking. So I'm going to read it that way now. Barb hadn't heard a lot about him, but no other logging crew had gone to Lake Chevanette, so people must have believed him. People like Pet's hillbilly parents, she couldn't take them seriously. So I'm really not sure which one's correct. I'm thinking you meant the second one, where it's all like one sentence. Anyway, we're gonna keep going. "Is that what Pet told you?" One eyebrow raised, Carl glanced at Barb. "Pet?" Ruth frowned once more. At that rate, she would need Botox injections before she turned 30, if she cared about her appearance. But considering she wore a beaten-up sunflower yellow sweatshirt and faded jeans, she probably didn't. I'm going to pause. This sounds like Barb. Did we switch points of view to Barb? And if we did, I'm not sure, but if we did, I'm guessing if we started with this first sentence of Barb recalled, I would have known that we were switching directly to Barb. But when it says frowning again, Ruth turned toward the rear seat. So did they ever build the lodge? I still felt like I was with Ruth because this was Ruth speaking. And then I still felt like I was with Ruth and she knew she was frowning is kind of how I read it and thought it. And I think part of me has been distracted through here because I was wondering all along whether or not this was Barb. And it kind of worked as being Ruth until I get to this part where I'm kind of getting these snarky thoughts, which sound like Barb, but I'm not sure. So I'm just pointing out, I'm still unsure. We're going to keep going, but I'm pointing out where I got lost if I'm wrong, because I'm not sure. So right here, I thought we were still with Ruth, but I wondered if we were intended to know that we were with Barb, if we somehow... I'm trying to figure out if it is Barb. I would have known it was Barb from right here if this wasn't here, but we need this because I like it. I like that, Ruth turned toward the rear seat. I'm kind of wondering if you could move it. Because I like the conversation that they're having. I like how this is playing out, but somehow I need to be clear that I'm with Barb, but I need to be clear from the very get-go. Anyway, at least I pointed out where the issue lies. I'm going to move on and let you think about it. Okay, where were we? Pet. Ruth frowned once more. At that rate, she would need Botox injections before she turned 30, if she cared about her appearance. But considering she wore a beaten-up sunflower yellow sweatshirt and faded jeans, she probably didn't. She must have had no idea jeans were the worst to wear to a lake, since anything made of cotton absorbed water and took ages to dry. Barb should probably have mentioned that before the field trip, but she had assumed anyone doing a master's in water resources management would already know. Pet's my husband, Barb replied. We got married 6 months ago in March. Ruth tilted her head, probably wondering about Pet's nickname, though not daring to ask. Is his name supposed to be Pete? Am I saying it wrong? Oh, here we go. We're going to keep going. I see clarification coming up. Ruth tilted her head, probably wondering about Pet's nickname, though not daring to ask. Ironically, Pet, short for Petronius, was sweet as a pet. Simple, low maintenance, yet academically gifted. 2 years ahead of Barb in the freshwater and marine sciences PhD program, he planned to defend his dissertation next year. Most ironic of all was his last name, Rabbite. Is it Rabbite or Rabbit? The main reason why Barb had hyphenated rather than changed her last name after they got married. Even funnier, Pet's sister was named Sandy, short for Alexandria, Rabbite. Still not as hilarious as thinking a lake could be haunted. You couldn't fall for that, did you? You didn't fall for that, did you? Just because we're from the city, they try to prank us? That didn't sound like a prank to me. They seemed like a decent couple. Okay, so because there's 4 of them in the car, I do need a tag on this. I'm thinking it's probably Ruth. I'm thinking it's Ruth. Yeah, I'm not sure what to suggest for a dialogue tag. Maybe her expression or something, or maybe maybe a body movement. Is she fidgety? Is she squirmy? How does Barb make her feel? We could show that a little bit somehow. Maybe. It's just, these are just musings to try to give you some kind of suggestion. Seriously, how could a science graduate student believe in such nonsense as a haunted lake and trees slaughtering people? Prank may not be the most fitting word, but we're educated people. We're supposed to know better. Then why don't you keep an open mind to new things? You could gain a lot more knowledge that way. Ruth tucked her mousy brown hair behind one ear. And it's got nothing to do with one's level of education. Who knows? The deaths could have a sensible explanation. Oh, how philosophical, Barb snorted. She could hardly wait to get home to tell Pet all about Lake Chevanet and tease him for being so gullible and superstitious listening to his hillbilly parents. Oh my gosh. So Barb is so mean. I have to wonder, what is Barb's motivation for being mean? Does she just think that she's just better than everyone else? But see, here's the thing. people make assumptions about other people. So I try to withhold that. But in my reasoning, I want to know, what is this girl's motivation? Why is she so miserable? Why is she so angry? What? She's nice to someone. I guarantee you she's got to be nice to someone. Maybe. I mean, probably, right? I hold out hope. Oh my goodness. She's just, okay. So she's being sarcastic. She's not buying it. She doesn't want anything in between her and her research, which, I get that part. You got a lot of work involved, and she sees an opportunity. So I get her motivation for that. I just don't get her motivation for being mean. And Ruth seems very sweet. Let's see. But, I agree with Ruth here. That man's reaction when they talked was so honest. I mean, he actually was so honest he couldn't even respond. So there's that. And the woman had firsthand knowledge. So this chapter your chapters are so short. They're just so short. I'm done already. How did this happen? It just must be reading really well that I'm just flowing right along. Nope, it's pretty short. What do you got? Like 3 pages? I was ready to keep going. I was ready to keep going. I did not have a ton of suggestions for this one. It read pretty good. And there was just that one little thing right there, I think, was the only thing that I wanted clarification on. And interestingly, now that I'm getting to know Barb, I was able to pick up her snarkiness. I kind of suspected we might making a change by this little indicator, but I held back. I guess I really didn't know for sure, because there was a chance you might have been going with time passing or something like that. So yeah, there was still a chance it could have been with Ruth. And because Ruth is the first one mentioned there, that's why I tried to keep in her mindset, because that's what I thought. From a reader point of view, that's what I thought. And then I was able to pick out, no, we're with Barb. I wondered when I saw this, I was like, we might be with Barb, but we could still be with Ruth. We're going to keep going with Ruth because that's where we kind of had been. But I was able to pick up that it was Barb very clearly from her internal thoughts there and her attitude, because we've gotten to know that is very consistent. I keep hoping she's going to, I don't know. I just, you hold out hope for people, I suppose. I'm even holding out hope for Barb, and she's fictionist. Okay. Well, it was a short chapter. It read really well. That's slight little couple of musings as I experience them. I hope something is gold in there, and we will see you guys next time on Mystery Red Reads.